You are listening to the FORSCOM Frontline, bringing you to our soldiers on the front lines of readiness.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the FORSCOM Frontline. I'm Jeannie, and I'm your host. This year is focused on warfighting and lethality, but I wanted to take a moment this month and celebrate the Army's 250th birthday. And what better way to do that than to take a look at the National Museum of the United States Army, which is the first comprehensive national museum to capture, display, and interpret almost 250 years of Army history. And today, I'm joined by their chief curator, Mr. Paul Morando.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, you guys have something special going on that released this month for the Army's 250th birthday. So, you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, we just opened a brand new landmark exhibit that covers the role of our American soldiers during the Revolutionary War. So we put together just this amazing exhibit with over 285 artifacts, original artifacts from the Revolutionary War. And what's really neat about this exhibit is the majority of those artifacts are tied directly to an individual soldier who served.
Okay, that is awesome. And from what I've read, it is called, the exhibit's name is Call to Arms, the Soldier in the Revolutionary War. So it makes sense that you would focus on Rev War, which we are also celebrating as well, which I think we're celebrating for like the next 10 years, I think. This year is all Army 250, and the next year we're into America 250, and obviously Rev War is in the background there. So how did the exhibit come about? Like, what was your inspiration to say, hey, we're going to do this? And then, like, how did you get there?
So about 4 years ago, basically after we opened the museum in June of 2021, that we had to figure out a way, obviously 250 years is coming, and we wanted to figure out a way to put on a special exhibit to honor the birth of the United States Army, but also the birth of our nation. And we knew we had obviously exhibit space to do it. But we were just trying to figure out what story are we going to tell. We already talk about the Revolutionary War in our permanent gallery, but we wanted to dig deeper in the individual soldier experience, figure out, A, why did they serve, and then B, what would they fight and what were they fighting for? So we started thinking, well, we need artifacts, and we need a lot of them to fill the space that we have. And we knew we couldn't cover all that space with the artifacts that are already in the Army. So we had to reach out to other museums, other institutions, to see if there were artifacts available to loan. And once we found out that, yes, we can actually do this, we went even further and started planning this exhibit. And then it just kind of skyrocketed from there. And we kept building upon these artifact loans, developing the storyline, developing the content, and off we went.
Okay. So in gathering these artifacts, and you said they come from various locations, what would you say is, as the chief curator, what is your favorite artifact that you guys secured, and where did you get it from?
Yeah, so I mean, easily it probably the first Rhode Island flag from the state of Rhode Island, because of what it represents, significance, where African Americans served in the Army for the first time under that flag. The working with the state of Rhode Island to get the flag was interesting, because they had in place a law that this historic flag cannot leave the state of Rhode Island. So we had to work with the state legislature, the governor, to change the law to allow this flag to come into our possession as a loan. Working with them, I mean, it was just so great. They were really honored to have the flag here. And it's the first time the flag has left the state of Rhode Island since 1784. And
Oh,
this is a
wow.
flag that was at Valley Forge. This was a flag that was carried by soldiers at Yorktown. So just a very special artifact, and we're extremely happy to have it on display.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's extraordinary. How long did it take to change that law? Because, I mean, laws, like, you just don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to change this law and do this. What was that process like?
Yeah, and it's based on their schedule in terms of how they bring, things into the legislature or into the state house. It was probably a good year
Okay.
until starting having that conversation with the right people to get it, elevated to the governor. It took about a year to do that, and so it was worthwhile going through that process. And they were so willing to help. That was what's so great. They wanted to be part of this exhibit as much as I wanted the flag to be a part of it. So.
Well, it's a good thing you guys started that conversation about doing this exhibit 4 years ago, then, right?
Yeah, and that's a lot of the preparation. So when you're dealing with artifact loans and these different institutions, it's much better to start early because they can plan for it as well. The paperwork, if there's any conservation that is needed by specific, for a specific artifact, logistics of moving the artifacts from point A to point B, all that's got to be taken care of before anything comes to us, before they can pack it, crate it, whatever they're going to do to get it to us. All that paperwork has got to be squared away before it moves.
Okay. So tell me, when a visitor comes to the museum and they specifically want to see the Call to Arms exhibit celebrating 250 years of the Army, what can they expect? Like, how is it different than just visiting the other exhibits in the museum?
I feel they'll have a much more intimate experience with the Revolutionary War, more importantly, with the soldiers who served. So, through not only the artifacts, but these realistic cast figures were based on real people who served in the war. So the story comes alive. I think they'll connect with their stories, connect on how they are presented. Their uniform, their facial expressions. There's a certain drama that is created with these cast figures that's in the exhibit. So I want them to understand or get deeper understanding of why these soldiers fought and ultimately what they were fighting for. So the exhibit in the museum, of course, is about soldiers. So here's another example of how we're extending that story. But we're talking about our first soldiers, right? We're talking about our first veterans. We are talking about people who gave their lives for our freedom. Whether they knew how long lasting that freedom was going to be, it doesn't matter. They did sacrifice, they did persevere, and we just want to show that, and we want the American public to understand that, maybe re-examine that as we enter our 250 years.
Okay, so I've had a chance to go and look at your website, the nmusa.org, and we will put that in our show notes for our audience so they can go and visit as well. Now, I've taken a look and kind of seen some of the photos of the new exhibit. And obviously, I haven't had a chance to go yet because I'm in North Carolina and you guys are up north. I'm hoping to go later this summer while I'm in Maryland for a couple months. So, I'm excited. But I saw these. They look like stone pillars. Is that what I was seeing, or am I thinking of
You're
something?
probably yes. You were probably looking at these steel pylons that we
Okay, they're
have.
steel, and it
Yeah,
looked
they're
like they had photos of service members on them. Can you tell me about that? Because those kind of intrigued me. I was like, what are these? And I'm going to find out more about them.
Yeah, so there are stainless steel pylons that actually greet visitors outside the museum and sort of welcomes you in introducing soldiers, right? So these are all individual soldiers from all walks of life, different time periods, that just look at what they've done and their connection to the United States Army. So in formation, they kind of come into the museum and they spread out through the museum's lobby, and then it kind of leads visitors into the permanent galleries. So yes, it's a great way to introduce the soldier story to the visitors, they're very, very popular with our visitors who you see just standing there, just reading their stories, and then going from one pylon to the other.
Absolutely. And these pylons, they're at the entry of the museum, not specifically this exhibit, correct?
No, correct. They're not.
Okay.
They're part of the main galleries, and they start essentially outside, enter the lobby, and then lead you to the permanent exhibits.
Now, is there any of those kind of in that exhibit that are specific to, Red War and that time period?
Yes, we actually, there are quite a few Red War soldiers represented in those pylons.
Okay.
So the very first one actually is a Red War soldier that's featured. So they kind of punctuated throughout the rest of the pylons.
Okay. One of the questions I had, and it kind of connected in my own head of like, how do you make the connections in the exhibit, to specific people? And so I know like you guys have the pylons and then, into the exhibit itself. How did you kind of decide who, I wouldn't say who is important, but like who we should remember and who we should look at, and like what is that connection and why is it important?
Well, right, and specific to the exhibit, the Rebel War exhibit, but also in the museum as well, we want to highlight soldiers that nobody knows about, right?
Yeah.
That those stories that may not be as popular as other stories may be. We all know about George Washington. We all know about Alexander Hamilton. We all know about others, but do we know about Savannah's Wood? Do we know about Daniel Nimham? Now, these are names that may not be recognizable, but they served an important role during the Revolutionary War. So we bring their stories to life, and of course, we do that through sort of the narrative timeline of the Revolutionary War, from Lexington and Concord all the way up to Yorktown. But we wanted to focus on the lesser known stories, because I think people will resonate more with those type of individuals than the usual suspects we all learned about in grade school.
That's amazing. So I'm excited for the Rev War exhibit, but I also kind of want to highlight on the museum itself, as well. Can you tell me what a visitor will see when they come there? And let's get them excited. Let's have them go visit you guys.
Yeah, no, it's we tell over 250 years of history, right? So, obviously starting during the Revolutionary War, but on to today. So how do we do that? I think we're unique in the fact that we tell it from the eyes of the soldier, the perspective of that individual soldier who served. So when you come into the museum, and you're expecting to see, of course, tanks and weapons and helmets, and you see all those great things, and they're awesome. But you also get to learn about these people, learn about these soldiers who served. Now, you could have served, you could have family who served, and friends or your neighbor, but you may not. So this museum is for people to get a deeper understanding about the history and heritage of the United States Army. And I think we achieve that through our galleries, through our pylons that you talked about, through just those individual stories that come to life through the artifacts, the cast figures, videos and films that talk about different experiences throughout the Army's history. And what's neat about the museum is it's done in a very balanced way. People have different ways of learning, whether they're visual, whether they're tactile, whether they want to read every artifact label. There's something for everyone.
That is amazing. I like it. And I just want to point out that to go to the museum, it is free. 100% free. You don't have to pay for anything. So all of this history and this knowledge is available to anyone who wants to come and visit. And you guys are open when? Monday through Friday, or are you open on the weekends as well?
We're open 7 days a week.
7 days a week.
We're only closed on Christmas Day, so 364 days a year, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We also offer special programming throughout the day, after hours, that is free as well. Educational program that enhance what is they see in the exhibits and other subjects, and so it's a very robust programming for folks to learn even more about the history of the Army.
Absolutely. And you guys also have some online programs as well for those who may not be able to come to visit the museum in person. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
Sure. You visit our website, you can find out, all you need to know in terms of when these programs occur. There are digital resources, so things you can just read on our website, whether they're articles or, films. We do a program in the exhibits department, Curator's Corner, what comes out typically once a month or every other month, that features an artifact in the museum. So there's all different types of ways to learn. If you can't make it to the museum, the first thing I would suggest is just go to the website and I'll have it all listed.
Okay. Now, say I were to come and visit, how long should I plan to stay in the museum in one day? Or can you do it in one day? Or if you're a history buff like my husband who has a history degree, like he probably want to be there like every day for a week. But, for the average person, how long would you set aside to go through the museum?
I would set aside a good 3 hours, to be honest.
Okay.
It all depends on how you process information, whether you read every piece of every label, graphic panel. But I would give yourself 3 hours. If you want to have a lunch in the cafe and things like that, it's always helpful. But yeah, you can literally spend a day at the museum.
Okay. And I was going to mention the cafe. So if you're one of those people who likes to read and touch everything and spend all day, there is a cafe that you can go and grab a bite to eat. And for those shoppers out there like myself, there is a gift shop as well. So that's exciting. That's where you'll find me at the end of the day, is in the gift shop. So, no, I am, thoroughly impressed with what you guys have put together at the museum. Is there anything else that you would personally like to tell me and the audience, whether it's about the museum or about the exhibit itself that I haven't already touched on?
Yeah, I just encourage people to come out and visit the museum, and specifically visit this exhibit. It'll be up for 2 years, so plenty of time to come out and see it. Whether you just want to learn more about the Army's role during the Revolutionary War. I often talk about this. I often say this, that we only declared our independence on July 4th, 1776. Right? It was up to our soldiers to fight and die for that independence. So come learn that story, learn what they sacrificed, especially now as enter 250 years as a nation. How did we do that? How did we defeat the British Empire, the professional army? And so by visiting the museum, visiting this new exhibit, you get a deeper understanding of how we came to be. And I think is extremely important, especially in this time, for Americans and for everybody to kind of relearn their history.
Fascinating. And you guys have only been open a short time. So for all you history buffs out there who have not had a chance to go and visit the National Museum of the U.S. Army, I highly suggest that you do. Again, it is free. They have a gift shop. They have a cafeteria and lots and lots and lots of things, exhibits that you can go and visit. So I just want to say thank you so much, Paul, for taking the time to tell me about the museum and all the exciting things you guys have going on up there and celebrating the Army's 250th birthday. So thanks again for talking to me today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And until next time, we'll see you on the front line, and happy 250th birthday, Army.